Hello all, a nice day here. Just seeing if this can do this. With another knife review, and today we're looking at a Protech. Way of Knife EDC Gearhouse exclusive, though I will admit that does not pick up that well. The color, the reflectivity, it's kind of hard to read. I'm going to stop doing that now. What are we looking at? We are looking at a Protech Godfather automatic, as many a Protech are, and the exclusive variant in this case has this sort of midnight blue, purple-ish handle with sort of a smoky satin gray DLC. I think it's a DLC, I'm pretty sure. This particular variant, probably not available, but the regular knife, the regular Godfather, is most certainly available, and a very interesting knife, which we will talk about as soon as we are out of specs. You have, it is almost 4 inches of blade. It is 3.9. It is slightly under that 4-inch mark, in my opinion. It sort of ends right here, where 4 inches are. We're into the realm of large knives. This is a large knife, though it does not carry or feel like one because it's so slim. Overall, 9 1/4. Handle, just about 5 1/4, maybe just a hair longer than that, which adds up. So, with my just a hair under 4 inches, so I'm not losing my mind. At least not in that. About that. Everywhere else, that's debatable. But comparisons: Elementum, Conspirator, small, full size. This is bigger. Bigger in every way except height. Even at its tallest, it is not as tall as the Conspirator at its tallest in the handle by itself, not counting the flipper tab. In fact, I imagine the flipper tab on the Elementum is taller than this knife. So, dimension-wise, it's not tall. Blade falls all the way in, but it is large. And once you get in a hand, that's when it starts becoming apparent that this is a sizable knife. As we're talking about dimensions, half an inch. Yep, about half an inch. It looks almost like it widens out here, this way, but it doesn't. It seems to be half an inch all the way along. So, handle is half an inch, blade stock is 125 thousandths, and behind the edge is going to be thick as heck, because this is a bayonet grind, it does not have a ton of room to drop down, it's not that style knife. This is not a slicer. You can certainly use it to cut. Come on now. $21 thousandths behind the edge. Which isn't bad considering just how little grind you actually have on this thing. I mean, that center line's right there. You don't have a lot of room to drop down. It's a thick knife, but this is clearly designed after the old school Italian stiletto, hence the name Godfather. They're playing around there. This is meant to go this way. Not this way. The tip works pretty well. You can definitely use it, and it's definitely would make a perfectly fine at opening packages. I mean, with this, the tips gets a little thick, but I mean, that's a ton of tip. You're not going to have trouble getting into anything with this thing. But it's not a slicer. I will say that while it is thick and doesn't cut the greatest, Protech does do very good edges. This has a very sharp, bitey edge on it. Rest of the specs. That's... no. Yes. Okay, so D9 pivot, T8 body screws, T6 pocket clip. I don't mind that on this one. It's not reversible, despite the knife being an automatic and hence usable for left-handed people. They're clearly going for a design here, a clean aesthetic, this just stylized stiletto, so not tapping it for left-handed carry is kind of understandable. Maybe they make left-handed versions of it. I don't know, I've never seen it, but it is what it is. You probably won't ever have to interact with the clip, unless you want to change out the clip to a different aftermarket clip, if you can find one or get one made. Which I'm almost certainly going to do because I don't like this clip, because USA-made companies, USA-made production companies, I gotta clarify that. Most of them are terrible at making clips. Clips are terrible. Microtech, Protech. TRM clips they work great, and they feel good. They know what they're doing there, but I mean, they're deep carry sort of stamped clips too. It's mostly like tactile that really is giving you sort of a refined machine clip. Spyderco is whatever the crap that is. I mean, let's be completely honest. It's not uncomfortable, but every grip I can feel that clip. I can feel this thing. It kind of is not a great clip. And they love to do their giant flats on the end. Spyderco does it. Protech does it a lot. A lot of companies do it, so that's not just them. But that stamped hideous clip just does not fit for this knife. I'm hoping maybe I'll get like some sort of aftermarket small, maybe like monochrome Damascus clip or something. That'd be cool. But the T6s are only there. If you're messing with the clip, you'll have to interact with them. They are decent. I haven't taken it off, but I have tested it. They're deep. They're easy to screw. I haven't had any problems stripping. Not that I've tested it a lot, but if you ever interact with it, you're going to do so once, probably. Actually taking the knife apart, you won't have a problem. Because T8s and T9. Again, this is automatic. There's a spring in there. I don't necessarily suggest taking this thing apart if you can help it. I feel like... oh, I want to make a size comparison for the old the double-A batteries, which, as you can see, just this thing eats them. It's huge. It's a big knife. Despite that, the final spec that I haven't talked about is weight at 4.29 ounces. Not quite an ounce an inch, but not far off. It doesn't weigh a lot. It's not the greatest balance because it's kind of balanced back here, but then again, holding it back here feels pretty natural, honestly. And you can certainly hold it up here, and it feels still pretty natural. That's due to the very neutral handle. It is a stick, basically. Though I will say this, and I think this is important to notice. This did not feel the way I thought it was going to feel when I first saw and got this knife. You see it and you just think, okay, it's a straight sort of daggerisk style handle. And it is and it isn't. It feels different in my hand than I expected it to. Not bad, just different. Because when you really look close, as you can see, there is more space on this side of the button than there is on this side. It's much, I mean, you have your chamfer, but you have much less flat on this side than you do on this side. That's because it is taller on this side. It also, while it has a straight handle here, in relation to that, this handle actually cants up this way. When it gets thicker, it does it from like this in relation to the handle. Or into relation of where you're kind of holding the blade. So it almost feels a little bit like a sway back, a very mild sway back where it comes up at the back. It thickens out there, and that's kind of how it feels in the hand. It's not what I expected. I expected, again, more just a straight dagger blade or handle feel. Not quite. Something to be aware of, I think, is just that's what I'm trying to do. If you're going to buy this knife, or you're interested in this knife, or you're just want to know about this knife, it is a little different in the feel than I was expecting. For me, again, not bad, but you just feel it coming up a little bit. That said, still super neutral. You can hold it anywhere. The clip, while you feel it, is not uncomfortable in any way. There are positions, like right about here, where the clip almost disappears for me. But it's a big clip. Lots of retention. It's actually a bit tight. And giant flat, so it's not the easiest in and out of the pocket. Again, a lot of companies, but especially some of the USA-made production ones, they like their weird stamped folded clips. Not a fond of them. Especially when they're not deep carry. Unless they work really well. But then you tend to get into the slightly higher ranges. I'm going off on a tangent. Quick look at this knife. You've got clamshell construction, aluminum. This one is in this midnight bluish purple coating. It's probably a Cerakote or something on there. It's a bit chalky. It's a bit texture-y, kind of, but it's smooth, but it's kind of like a blasted, like Chris Reevey kind of thing. Maybe a little less textured than that, or a little less chalky than that, but it feels good, but it does get dirty very easily, and it picks up little hints of discoloration quickly. It usually wipes off pretty nicely, but it does pick it up. So I don't know how I feel about that. I don't love it, but I do like the look of it. So yeah, you take what you're gonna get. The blade is in 154 cm, so aluminum and 154 cm. Pretty standard for Protech, especially pretty standard for this price range at USA Made. Though we can probably do better than 154 cm on the steel. Let's be honest. I know Hogue tends to do better the steels at lower price points. I wouldn't mind seeing an S35 on this thing. But again, not exactly a focus on user, like, consistent knife use for this blade. It's not focused for that. It's too narrow. Bayonet thick, gets thicker fast. Plunge grind that's one thing I think Protech, that is one thing, aside from maybe an update to their clips, Protech needs to work on. They'd like to bring their plunge grinds almost to the end of this choil. Now, for this knife, it's not a big deal because, honestly, I don't want to sharpen this knife too many times because it's going to get super thick, and that's not really the intent on this knife. But if you look at something like a Malibu, if it brings it right up to the edge there, it's forcing you to cut in a choil. You can do it typically on Protech knives. In this case, the stop pin in the opening position seems to be the button, and it actually goes all the way down into there to be completely enveloped by the blade. So you have full access to the choil if you have to make it bigger. Stop pin up here for the opening position. Actually, what is holding this? Oh, I guess the button, this little notch in the button is what's actually holding it open, I assume. Can we get in there? Can I see what's going on in there, please? Yeah, that looks like those are the two pins holding it open, this and this. Side tangent. So, useful, but clearly focused for a reason on the blade. This one also has a little bit of a fudge up on the grind at the end. As you can see, the coating goes down further, while it looks like the edge of the belt has been hit, so you've got a faux sort of already start to smile, and that's what's going to happen more, except it's going to look the same color as the edge as you sharpen because of that where that plunge grind ends. Don't like seeing that. Not as big as of a deal on this particular knife. It's just not. It's the style of the knife. It's part of the whole thing. But on other knives, that would be negative. Super neutral, you got abalone. I love natural materials, particularly abalone. And Protech does an excellent job of execution for that. And honestly, Protech does an excellent job in general. They are, in my opinion, probably one of the best USA-made production knife makers in this sort of territory. Their knives do feel very good. I've had some Hogue that have had little ups and downs, little inconsistencies, and they're a little bit cheaper and they feel it. Usually are a little bit cheaper, and some of them feel it. TRM is another one that I would put up at the top of... I mean, TRM is super specifically designed knives with thin, very specific knives, but they're pretty darn consistent and pretty darn good knives for your price point. Spyderco USA-made ones are similar, but they feel very different. They're just sort of a different feeling knife. If you're talking USA-made production in this sort of $200 range, Protech, TRM, and Spyderco are probably some of the best. I will admit my tactile knife Archer is amazing and 100% better. Better quality. It is also a $500 knife. You're getting into the realm of CNC, mid-teching kind of nonsense. And yeah, okay, Hinderers, Medfords, whether you like their knives or not, their production and machining is top tier. Even if some of the designs could probably deal with a little tweak here and there, it's top tier. It's great for USA made if you're not going into the actual more expensive, very limited semi-custom territory. They're kind of mid-techs, but if you're not going deep into that, yeah, those are good, but they're also more expensive. This is probably about as good as you're going to get from USA made at this tier, which is nice. And I like Protech. I have a couple. And this is a really good knife, but it is a really specifically designed knife with this pokey blade. Again, not a cutter in that sense, not a slicer, but it's not designed to be, so I can't hold it against that, right? It's a knife you should, if you're interested in getting, there's no reason not to. There's nothing bad here. It's just you have to know what you're dealing with. You have to realize that what you're getting is not just going to be standard knife, right? I mean, you can get this, you can get bucks, you can get USA made ones, you can get all kinds of things that just look like a knife. This is a little different. One thing that I would like to say is, when this is in the handle, it dips down pretty deep. So there's a lot of room there. I don't know why Protech has never done a variant of this thing with sort of like an abrupt sheep's footy razor blade shape on it, where it's squared off, that is fully flat ground and can get much thinner. That would be an extremely usable knife and an extremely interesting take from this stiletto to sort of like a straight razor or a Spanish tip razor or something like that end on this thing. In this knife, I think you could probably fit it in the handle. Maybe they'd have to make a slight adjustment to how they execute part of the the clamshell backspacer. But you could probably get it in there with... And I think that would look really interesting. I'd like to see Protech do something like that. They're probably never going to do it or hear it or see it, but I don't know. I just think that would be kind of cool. A variant of this thing where it's literally just a rectangle. That'd be fun. That's just personal. Side note kind of thing. Price point, $210. Which, USA made, well executed, abalone. Yeah, 154 cm isn't the best steel at that price. A lot of even USA made companies, you can get into the S35s, and like Hogue again does MagnaCut and M390 for a bit cheaper. But they're also not quite as refined and well executed. They're oftentimes not autos at that price range. And honestly, this thing doesn't need an edge retention nightmare or crazy steel on it because it's not that kind of knife. It's a stabby. A stabby knife. So the blade steel's fine on this thing. I suppose you could say maybe one S35VN, they may make one. I don't know. They have tons of variants. There's tons of options. The base model, for like I said, is around $205. Very reasonable, very acceptable, very good, especially for Protech's quality. A+. You can get different inlays, different handle materials. Protech does kind of dresses all to the nines and hits every price point with their knives for going up from their base model. Damascus, some crazy engraved thing for like $5,000, I'm sure you can probably find. But they offer a lot of options, inlays, especially on the Godfather, where they have very nice inlays on both sides, and the aluminum bronze kind of handles that, yeah, they make it more expensive, heavier and everything, but they look good. There's a lot of options. There's a lot to like here. You just need to understand what kind of knife it is that you're getting. Beyond that, I really like it. And I like Protech's packaging. I'm going to stick it in this way, see how that goes. Oh, this patch was fighting me. The patch was fighting me before, and it's still fighting me. There you go. Limited lifetime warranty, which always sounds weird to me. It's limited, but it's lifetime. It makes sense, just weird. That's the Protech Godfather. I like it. I do recommend it. USA made. But a particular kind of knife. From a very good company. That's all from me. See you in the next one.